Good morning. I'm going to come down here because I'm kind of tall. I don't want you to have to look past me to the information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the stuff that, if I can get the clicker to work. Hang on a second. There we go. Some of this you just saw. This is the presentation I have given 37 times in the last week and 2.5 weeks. So if I don't do a very good job, there's no real excuse for it. All right, so 58,000 students. We have 93 square miles. And you know, one of the things I would like to tell you is when you saw that video and it said the 12th largest district in the state of Texas, there's a lot of wonderful things, a lot of wonderful people that go into making education important for those 58,000 students. But I want to share some of the things that have been going on in the last year or so. One of the things that we started this year, we're adding elementary art back into the elementary schools. We did that at 11 campuses this year. We will continue to do that in 6 to 7 schools per year for the next 4 to 5 years until we have elementary art back at all of the elementary schools. And so we're very excited about that. We also launched a global business leadership magnet at Naaman Forest. We currently have 43 students involved in that program. And the way that works is this: they're taking Mandarin Chinese, the language. As they get into their junior and senior year, they will start taking dual enrollment classes, some at our community colleges, some at UTD. And when they graduate, they'll have about 30 hours. And the group that started this year, after 4 years of Mandarin Chinese, they will not necessarily be fluent, but that's our goal at some point. So starting next year, at 2 of our elementary schools, Back and Weaver, we will start dual language in kindergarten and first grade with English and Mandarin Chinese. Those students will work their way through elementary school until they get to Sellers Middle School, and then eventually get to Naaman. When those students finally get to Naaman for us, they will then take AP Mandarin Chinese, and they will be fluent native speakers. So once these students go through this program, sometime during their junior year, we will take them to China, and they will spend anywhere from 10 to 14 days with a sister school in China being immersed into the language. So the whole program is about getting our students ready for the global society. We expanded AVID, which is individual, it's college readiness. And we did that at 12 of our elementary schools. And so at an elementary school, what does AVID mean? We're teaching them note-taking skills at a very young age. And that'll transcend itself into middle school and high school. But we also now are district-wide AVID college readiness at all of our middle schools and high schools. We added 7 high school counselors this year. High school counselor at each one of our schools. Before House Bill 5, the counselors were required by law to meet with the student and the parent if the student was not on track to graduate. House Bill 5 changed that. House Bill 5 said you have to meet with every student and every parent every year. So knowing that that workload was going to increase, we added a counselor at each of our high schools. NIMSI, National Math and Science Initiative. They approached our district last year and said, hey, if we can find a sponsor, would you be willing to have this program? We said, absolutely. They found Texas Instruments, and they gave us a $1.5 million grant. North Garland, South Garland, Naaman Forest, and Lakeview Centennial. If a student passes an AP test at those campuses, they receive $100. The teachers also receive money for every test passed. People, you know, and when you look at that, when you look at the statistics in districts that have been in, the passing rate goes up 20 to 25% immediately. It's amazing. Now, they're also currently looking for a company to sponsor the other 3 high schools starting next year. So the other 3 high schools haven't been left out, but they just started with 4. We're a big district, and so they're going to try to pull in the next 3 schools next year. We added middle school soccer this past year. We are creating an employee health clinic. It will open sometime in January. It's for minor things, you know, see if people have the flu, strep throat, those kinds of things. You know, it's a convenience for our employees. Then we had iPads for all teachers. The students mentioned the teachers got iPads last spring. They've been working with them all summer, and now they're working into the classroom. And one of the things that we're trying to do is make the learning more engaging for our students. We're in an energy management program, and that savings, in the first 6.5, 7 months, we saved $700,000. So that's $700,000 that we would have spent on an electric, gas, or water bill that we can now put back into the savings and put back into the classroom. And specifically, the board's going to start seeing recommendations from the administration to put that back into the elementary technology, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Our strategic plan. When this is over, I'm going to try to talk Chris into finding the computer, because I want him to be able to show the website. But there's two icons, I think, as somebody in the community that you really need to look at. One is the bond. So anything that I'm talking about today, this presentation is actually on our website. The exact PowerPoint, you can refer anybody to it, and we'll show you how to do that. But this strategic plan, we spent 6 months with around 2,250 people identifying the things this community thought were the most important things they wanted our students to focus on in the next 3 years, and the teachers. So if you want to know what initiatives are Garland going to do in the next 3 years, it's in the strategic plan in these 7 different categories. A call to action: reaching the future, driving excellence one student at a time. That is our goal. That is our desire. Then you look at belief statement. This is what we believe. We believe, look at the things in red: quality education, equal access, safe and balanced learning, and students will drive every decision in the district. Then we get to the bond information. So a lot of people, when they hear about a bond, they really want to know, on the money side, what's the district running its maintenance and operations on, the day-to-day, and then what's a bond do? So a lot of people don't realize there's 2 sources of funding. One's maintenance and operation. That's our daily budget, over $430 million budget. That's what pays salaries, turns lights on. That is not what we're about to talk about. We're going to talk about a bond which can do things like remodel, replace air conditioning units, replace computers, those kinds of things. It is not to run the day-to-day. So if somebody in the community asks you this question, and they say, I heard if the bond passes, everybody's going to get a pay raise. The answer to that question is what? No, because bond money cannot be used to run the day-to-day operations of the district. We have a budget to run the day-to-day operations. This is above and beyond that budget. Now we look at the history of elections. 1986, $79 million. When you look in 2002, it's $385 million. And you can see the progression. It goes from 79 to 385. And in today's dollar, with inflation, 385 is a little over 500 million. But this is the way I always compute it when I talk to people. In 1986, I'm 50 years old, folks. In 1986, when I was pumping gas in my car, it was 86 cents a gallon. What we wouldn't give for 86 cents a gallon gas right now, right? When you're filling up with your car now, it's around $3.15 to $3.20 a gallon. That is just an example of what inflation has done over the course of time. We did our history, we did our homework, we looked at demographic information, how many students we have, we looked at our facilities assessment. We spent 9 months studying the facilities, looking at everything from the rooftops to what was under the building, from pipes to electricity, everything that you can imagine. We looked at a financial analysis. What can the district afford? And then we did 2 community surveys to get feedback from the community. And then the Citizens Bond Committee spent this summer, which is what Stan talked about, looking at every one of those. And this followed the timeline from June 2013 to August 2014. Everything that we have ever presented at any of our public forums is available online. You can go back and read. You can actually see that assessment, which is probably close to 10,000 pages of information and pictures. You are more than happy to go on our website and you can see that at any time. One of the things on secure entrances, now we're to the specifics of the bond, $36 million. This is a picture here of Naaman Forest on the left. This is also the same entrance to Lakeview Centennial, so they're the same floor plan. But if you see the light in the very back, that's the office. A secure entrance is where we want people when they walk into our schools, all right? We want them to have access to adults first, not the kids, and not the teachers. 66 of our 71 schools, when you walk into the school, you do not walk into an office, you walk into a hallway. Now we buzz you into the school, but then we trust that you're going to go from where we buzzed you in to the office to check in. We want people to check into the offices first, and that is what the secure entrances are. Then we look at security cameras. And on upgrades of security cameras, one of the best examples that I can give, the cameras are so much better today than they have been in the past. So when we say we're upgrading cameras, this is an example of what I'm talking about. We're familiar with where Garland High sits, right? Avenue D and B. If I put a camera in the middle of Garland High parking lot and I turn it towards the Taco Bell, everybody know where I'm at, right? I can read the menu off the Taco Bell. That's how good the cameras are today. It's not like, a lot of times, if there were educators in here, it's like you see a picture of something and you think, is that male or female? That's fuzzy, you can't tell. Folks, you can tell now. And one of the things that we would do is upgrade those camera systems. Outside lighting for security. And then finally, we look at fire alarms and sprinkler systems. So we have fire alarms in every one of our buildings. I don't want you to think we don't, but about every 10 years you need to replace those. The one thing we don't have in every one of our buildings are sprinkler systems. The average age, and Mike talked about starting elementary school at Williams, the average age of the buildings in Garland are 37 years old. 37 years ago, it wasn't required to have sprinkler systems in public schools. Half of our schools do not have sprinkler systems. So this bond would put the sprinkler systems in the schools. Those 50% of the schools that don't have them, they would get sprinkler systems. Then we look at doors and hardware and restrooms. This is ADA compliance and safety. When you look at that, that's a pretty typical handle in a door in Garland ISD. Now, if I just ask you to turn your head real quick and you look at the doors in this building here, you will notice that they're lever type handles. The reason, if you lack fine motor skills and you have a handicap, in a time of crisis, you're not supposed to have a door that turns like that, because people in a time of crisis, if there was a fire, they would be locked into that room, even though the door is unlocked. So when you go to ADA compliance, it needs to be a lever type handle. So when we start doing remodeling, we have to consider that. Then if you look in the middle of that door, you don't see a lock. One of the things that many of our teachers, if we have a lockdown, where we say there's an intruder in the building, we practice that 2 to 3 times a year, okay? Then many of our teachers actually have to step out into the hallway to lock the door to go back into the classroom. If there truly is an intruder in the room, we don't really want the teachers out in the hallway with the intruder. So you put a lock right in the middle of that door. Then we look at restrooms. Remember, the average age of the building 37 years ago, the middle picture is a pretty common picture of a lot of the restrooms in Garland ISD. You can see the pipes. Look at the height of the dispensers. If you're in a wheelchair, you can't reach that. Also, the pipes, you're not supposed to have the pipes right there because you can't get your wheelchair up underneath there so you can use the sink. So just remember, 37 years old, average age. It's not like that's a bad restroom when it was built. It's just not compliant to today's standards when it comes to ADA. Then we look at mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So I'm going to put Dr. Moses on the hot seat here because he's looking at his phone. He's not paying attention to me. And so this is important stuff. No, I'm just telling you. When Williams School opened in 1958, how many computers were in the building? None. Okay, so please understand what I'm about to say. We have wonderful buildings. I don't want you to think that that our buildings are in poor shape. They're not. But when they're 37 years old, the buildings were not designed to handle all of the plug-in computers and all the outlets that we need. So we have electricity in all of our buildings, but we need to upgrade some of that because we are plugging in a lot more devices all over the place. Because the buildings 37 years ago were not designed for computers because computers didn't exist. Window replacement. If you're driving down Avenue B or D and you look at Garland High School, I'm going to use that as an example because a lot of us travel up and down that street a lot, the windows on the second floor. All right, those are single pane windows, but they also have asbestos type putty that was put into those windows when they were built. Now, years ago, no one thought anything about asbestos type putty. Let's say one of those windows breaks, and this happens from time to time, not necessarily at Garland High School, but throughout the district, one of those single pane windows. Somebody breaks a window. It costs $50 to replace the glass. It costs us anywhere from $500 to $750 for a company to do asbestos abatement, because that's a requirement by law. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend $8 million and take all of those windows out. It's two advantages. We get rid of the asbestos in one, and then we become much more energy efficient because we go from single pane to double pane windows. So it kind of has a two-pronged attack on that. Then we look at lights at baseball fields and concessions at baseball fields and softball fields. All right, so I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. I promise I will not call on you. All right, you have my word. How many of you can give me the definition of Title IX? You know what Title IX is. Raise it high. It's pretty good. Okay, the rest of you actually know it, you just don't know you do. What you do for boys, you must do for girls. Okay, so when Title IX changed, most people thought that Title IX really only dealt with colleges. Well then, as the years went on, Supreme Court said it actually dealt with high schools as well. So we have lights at 3 of our baseball fields, but we do not have lights at any of our softball fields. We have concession and restroom at a baseball field, but we don't have concessions and restrooms at the softball field. Those of you that drive up and down 190, you see Naaman Forest girls softball field sitting right in front, right? And when it's time for the softball season, we put a porta potty out there. All right? that's not in compliance because there's boys' facilities that have concessions and restrooms. So we would be upgrading all of the softball, and since 4 of our baseball fields don't have lights, we would go ahead and put the lights at those other 4 baseball fields as well. Fine arts expansion, band and choir rooms. Each of all those programs are expanding throughout the district. And we would be adding at middle school and high school a band and choir room at each of those facilities. Now we have orchestra at some of those facilities. Some of our orchestra programs are out in portables. The old band or choir room, we would probably remodel at that point, pick which one is the most appropriate size-wise, and bring the orchestra out from the portable into the old band or choir room. So you kind of get a double bonus there for fine arts. We're going to add for band and choir, but we're going to take care of orchestra at the same time. Career Tech Center and the natatorium. Now on the Career Tech Center, the students did a great job talking about some of the programs that are going to be in their culinary. We don't really have a district-wide culinary program. We're not looking at duplicating programs that we currently have in the district. An example, South Garland has a wonderful automotive program and have a wonderful welding program. We don't want another automotive and welding program here. We have other programs that we can offer, pre-engineering, architectural design. We have health science at our campuses that deal with nursing. But there's so many people, there's like 10,000 people a day, I think is what the statistics say, turn 65 in the United States for baby boomers. Then there's a lot of knee and hip replacements right now. There's a lot of things that we could have kids do with physical therapy and stuff like that, and offer programs. We could partner with our community colleges and things like that, which I've had experience doing. Now, what I would tell you is the biggest difference is this. Currently in Garland, if you want to choose one of those programs, you do what? You have to choose to give up your current high school and go to that program. That will continue. If you want to go into automotive or you want to go into welding, you need to attend South Garland. But this is a standalone high school where the students would start their day at the high school, at the Career Tech Center, and then they would go back to their high school. We would shuttle them at lunchtime, or the students would start their day at their high school and end the day at the Career Tech Center. So they will not be giving up their high school experience to attend classes at the Career Tech Center. And yes, there will be not just, when we say career and tech, there will be some type of college classes, dual enrollment classes that will be offered at the Career Tech Center as well. Example, culinary arts, full kitchen, there would be a restaurant there, computer animation and engineering type programs. Then we get to natatorium and Aquatic Center. I put in Aquatic Center for the reason a lot of people when you say natatorium don't realize it's a swimming pool with seats. And so a facility like this would open about 5 a.m. in the morning. People in the community on a very small fee can come in and do swimming. There's a lot of people like swimming as an exercise. But then the high school teams. Right now we currently have swimming at one high school, that's Garland High School. We rent a facility in Richardson for $30,000 a year. So if I actually could find 7 other facilities to have a program at each of our high schools, I can't find a pool for all the other high schools. But if I did, it would cost us around $210,000 if you just take 30,000 times 7 high schools to run a high school swim program. But I can't find those facilities. So what we would end up doing is our high school teams, they would swim in the morning, and then comes the water safety. We would have every one of our 3rd graders at some point during the year on a field trip. So you pick Williams Elementary, I was at Williams yesterday speaking to the teachers. Those teachers would go to the swimming pool, we would have people there, and they would do a water assessment on the kids. Can they swim? Can they float? Can they tread water? Can they hold their breath? We would send that assessment home to parents. Here's places that offer lessons. You can go pay for them yourself. Here's places that offer them for free. And the district would even offer lessons for free to some of our students, either this would be after school or weekends, summertime. And like the student said, the second leading cause of death for school-age children is drowning. Then the high school teams come back. They swim again, because if you don't know anything about swimming, they swim in the morning, they swim in the afternoon. But around 4:30 in the afternoon, you would have club-type swimming that would go on. And for those of you, I got 2 daughters, they're both in dance. A lot of you have students that are involved in a lot of things. There's a lot of students, probably anywhere from 350 to 400 students that would be involved in after-school swim programs. That would be at a fee. Those fees would help offset the cost of running that facility on a day-to-day basis. So the facility would open up about 5 a.m. in the morning and close every night about 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. And that's pretty much 365 days a year except for holidays. $50 million for computer replacement. That's to replace every computer that we currently have in the district. That's all the servers that we have, switches that we have, and our hardwire. We just spent a couple $1 million putting wireless in to get the teachers ready for their iPads. but this is the next step, replacing the current computers. And then, as the students talked about the iPads, and I would say iPad because that's what the teachers have right now, so I'm just going to use the term iPad, but an iPad device for middle school and high school kids. All of their textbooks will be loaded into those devices. So even if the students do not have wireless at home, they can still have access to their textbooks. Now, your publishers, Pearson, McGraw-Hill, and all those publishers are telling us anywhere from between 5 and 10 years, they're going to quit producing high school textbooks. Everything's going to be electronic. So we're basically trying to get ahead of that curve a little bit. And then what ends up happening, after 3 years, we would turn around and we would replace those iPads. But then those iPads would get cleaned up, all the apps taken off, their music taken off, and then we would give them back to the elementary schools, and the elementary schools would then have anywhere from 500 to 600 of them used for small group instruction. So it starts at the high school and middle school, work its way down to elementary, and that cycle just continues every 3 to 4 years, and we just continue that cycle over and over. Here's what the bond package is, $455,500,000, and here's the tax impact. The very first dollar amount, $4, that's what we talk about when I talk about my salary, teachers' salaries, running the day-to-day, the things that make the district run, a little over $430 million budget. That is not what the bond is. The bond is that middle amount, interest and sinking fund, 21 cents. Now remember, we put all those lists of the bonds up there. In 1996, we passed a bond in 2002. A bond is sold for 20 years. So we still have money left over that we're paying on the 96 bond and the 2002 bond. That's the 21 cents for the tax total of $1.25. What does that look like? Garland has not had a bond in 12 years. Garland ISD is 18th out of 19. If the bond was to pass, we would come up right in the middle, right in between Rockwall and Plano on tax rate. So if you're a homeowner, what does that mean to you? For every $100,000, at the end of the 5 years, and we sell all $455,500,000 bond, your house payment will go up $17 a month. So if you live in a $200,000 home, $34 a month. $300,000 home, add another $17 a month. Now I will tell you this, we do not sell all the bonds at once. So at the end of the first year, we might sell $100 million worth of bonds because these projects will be spread out over 5 years. So at the end of the first year, your house payment might go up $5, $5.50 a month per 100,000. And then the second year, you can add a couple dollars to that until at the end of 5 years, and we've sold all the bonds, it's $17 a month. If you are 65 or older, that $17 a month does not impact you. And what that does is the Homestead Exemption kicks in, and it basically says the only way that your taxes go up is if the county assessor raises property values, which they did that this year, which we have no control over. But the $17 a month absolutely does not impact you. Then we look at early voting, starting as a student said October 20th to the 31st. There's different times. The 25th and 26th are weekend. The locations, you're sitting in one of them right now. Rowlett Chamber office right here, the Richland College Garland campus, the Rowlett City Hall Annex, and the Saxe High School with the November 4th election day. Questions? I'd be more than happy. Now, here's the one thing I would tell you, the caveat. I can only give factual information, so if you ask me my opinion, I will politely look at you and say, I cannot give you my opinion on that. Okay? Chris and them are going to show you the website there where it says the bond, and that tradition-rich, future-ready is that strategic plan I talked about. So anything that you want to know about the district, you can find out what we're doing for the next 3 years. But if they click on that bond, everything that I talked about, everything that was presented at the summer for everybody in the community is on that website for them to see, for you to see. What kind of questions do you have? Yes, Charlie.
Bob, is it true that if you vote on the first day of early voting and then you die before election day, your vote still counts?
I'm going to go with yes. I'm just hoping it doesn't apply to me. I've never heard that one. That's a good one. Questions? Anybody?
Bob, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of any of the other districts in the county, or you listed all the districts? What are other districts contemplating with respect to upcoming bond issues? Are you aware of any of that and the effect that it would have on their
You know, I don't know. I know when you look at that list, that was before Arlington and Frisco's was computed into that. I mean, what Arlington was almost $650 million, and Frisco was $720 million, and that, so that was off of those results before that. Honestly, I am so into presenting this 57 times this month. I have not paid attention to what other districts are doing. Is Mesquite going? I don't know if the other districts going out. I just don't know. But what I can tell you is, as far as we go, you know, I don't think Plano and Rockwall have a bond, so we would be still sandwiched in between them, but I don't know on that scale if we would go up or down. I would think, if anything, if anybody else is going out for a bond, it would push us further down that list, not further up the list. That's as if everybody, that's just basically, if we're the only ones doing a bond, that's what it would be. But I know we're not the only ones doing one, but I can't tell you which ones. Do what?
Pages up
Okay, well, if I will click on the bond there. And if you look up there, proposed overview by facility, click on the by facility. This is real important because that's every campus. So just do me a favor, pick out, I don't really care, pick out any school. It makes me no difference. Just click on one of them. We have this information for every school. And you kind of scroll down as it comes. This is Golden Meadows Elementary. And as they scroll, there we go. As we scroll down, it will tell you everything, building systems and everything, item by item, everything that's going to happen at that school. And I can't tell because that line's going right through there how many millions of dollars that is on the total cost. But you can look at every one of our 71 campuses. Now what I would tell you is if this passes, every one of these projects, every school will have a timeline. So as a taxpayer, as a parent, you will have a start date, everything that we do in year 1, everything we do in year 2, 3, 4, and 5. When you start a project and when the project is completed. So you as a taxpayer can follow the progress over those 5 years by campus. So every one of those 71 campuses has one of these project lists. You can pick out any of them. Naaman Forest, I think it's 23 million, or Lakeview was 23. One was 23, one was 21. Garland High School is 22. A lot of our middle schools are about $8.5 to $9 million. Depends on the age of the building. And you know, we have some schools that are newer, like Doherty. Basically, all they're getting 5 years from now will replace their computers, but they have a brand new school. They don't need anything. So, but it lists every one of the projects. 21 million. Is that Garland High? Naaman. Okay, Naaman Forest. 21 million for Naaman Forest. And so you can see school by school. And I think that's important for parents because with school choice, which is a great program, you know, I live in Firewell, but I have a daughter that goes to Brandenburg. I have a daughter that goes to Abbott. So I have students on both sides of Garland. And I think that's important because parents, it's not like my neighborhood school because we get to choose. And that's a great program, but because we do that, everybody kind of wants to know what's going on all over the district, which is a good thing. It also has the Citizens Bond Committee. That bond overview presentation, that's the PowerPoint I just went over. But up there at the top left, the Citizens Bond Committee, if you're curious, what kind of information did they give everybody in the summer? Every one of the presentations, every one of the PowerPoints, everything is right there. You can go back and read everything that we covered with everybody this summer. So there absolutely are no secrets. We really do want people to go in and make an educated decision. Regardless of what the decision is, we're going to provide you all the information possible. Anything else? Got 2 questions, one here and then back over here. Yes?
As a local business person who owns Garland ISD municipal bonds right now, your interest rate on your 20-year bonds in this market are probably a point less than they were a year ago, and I'm sure more than that when you compare rates today versus 2, 3, 4 years ago. So your timing is really good,
Right.
I think, in terms of issue. The other thing is that Garland ISD bonds are extremely well rated.
We do. We're one of the top 7 or 8 districts in the state. I want to give accurate information. Is that correct? I want to be factual here. Like 7 or so districts like us that have the same AAA rating with Moody's. So our bonds are very desirable out in the open market. That is a factual statement, yes. Somebody there, yes?
Yeah, there are uncertainties and, I guess going forward, we have quotes and estimates and stuff like that. What happens if you get into the actual construction, that type of thing, inflation or whatever? How
Sure.
does the bond adjust for that?
I'll show you. Chris, can you go just pull up any one of the schools? Doesn't matter which one. Is he back there still?
He's right here.
Oh, right there. Sorry, didn't know where you were. Pull up one of the schools. I want to show you what we did in the preparation for that. Because one of the important things is you don't want to start a project, you don't want to tell people you're going to be able to do all these projects and get to the end, you run out of money. So when you look at, so this is Etheridge. If you scroll down to Etheridge, at the bottom of this, you're going to see something called escalation. And it says total escalation cost. You see escalation there, $310,000 for those projects. Or it may be 1.3, yeah, I think 310,000. Anyway, whatever that number is. So what happens, we calculate every one of these projects as if it happened in year 5. So if it happens in year 1, I have 4 years worth of escalation that I didn't have to pay for. But some of those projects are going to happen in year 5, so you have to calculate it as if it's all in year 5. So what that means, at the end of the 5 years, you're going to have a little bit of money left over. If all things go well, inflation doesn't get carried away, you should have a little bit of money left over, possibly to do some other small projects, not much, but there's a few small projects. But it's actually calculated into these estimates. So we would not run out of money, so we can guarantee that all the projects would get done over the course of those 5 years. So it's already built into the system. It's a great question. Anything else? Okay, I'll be around after this is over, and who am I turning this over to? Back to the gift. Here we go.